Okay, guys. Well, I have already mentioned that I'm something of a newbie to recording video, and I paused the last one so that I can go ahead and plant this dill for you guys to not have to sit around and look at most of a chair while I did it. And then, not knowing how to unpause it, I just saved the video. So this is the second part to it, and it kind of sucks that you're going to have to watch this in two parts. But, hey, it makes it look like I have more videos, I guess. So, you always try to find the silver lining. Anyway, so I went ahead and I planted this dill, and I am well aware of the fact that a lot of these are not standing up yet, and it's probably because it is a little warm out here, and I had them soaking for the last 2 days. I just did not have an opportunity to transplant them before now, but I did make it a priority, and I packed everything. Now, I did use some of this coffee, not a lot. The idea is not to use a lot of it, but I did use some of it, and I kind of sprinkled it in there, and I took advantage of the pause to go ahead and grab my fertilizer. And this is what I use. I use the Joby's, whatever, vegetable and tomato fertilizer, and they are granules. So just to show you what this looks like, and yeah, my hands are usually clean. They're a little dirty right now. But these are granules, and you sprinkle them in the plant, and then you go ahead and water. So that's what I did. I sprinkled them in there and watered them, and voila, that's what you're looking at. So I will tell you that they smell really good. It is so divine, and that's what it looks like. Well, that's kind of what it looks like. You got to see part of it. To transplant dill, and we will see how this works. So, and again, I've mentioned this before, I am totally new at this entire thing. It's not like I've never transplanted a plant or anything. I've done it with that pepper plant, I've done it with that pepper plant. However, and I've actually never shown you guys before because it's always in the background, those are actually carrot greens. I had taken some organic carrots and I cut the tops off of them and put them in water, and they started to grow the greens back. Now this just goes to show you how fun it is to be a newbie. I actually thought I was going to regrow carrots, let alone I found out, nope, that's not how it works. You can only regrow the greens. What can you do with carrot greens? Well, you can do some stuff with carrot greens. I will probably take this entire thing and make a pesto with it. However, once that's done, I don't think I'm going to stay in the replenishing carrot greens thing, because I think I can think of other things to do with that container. I do actually have carrot seeds. I will end up planting carrots at some point. I don't know that this is the season to do it, though. So I'll find that out. But I'm very funny about planting by season at this point. And what can I say? Everything I have ever done in my life came from a place of I had no idea how I was going to do this, but I did it anyway. And that's how I ended up going to the Fitness Institute school, Fitness Institute International, not to be confused with anything else. It's Fitness Institute International, Inc., personal training school in Boca Raton, Florida, not to be confused with anything else that tries to take their name and use it for anything. That's how I got through that school. That came from the I have no idea how I'm going to do this, I'll just do it anyway thing. That's how I started writing. That's how I got my first book written. That's, in fact, how I ended up getting an award for it. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I did it anyway. That's how I started all of these plants, which a year ago was nothing but a little dream. It was, I'd like to get this started. I have no resources, no know-how, no space, nothing. And now look at what I have. I've got all this green and all these free resources too. All of these buckets all of these buckets, really, well, most of them, were free. I think I had mentioned it in one of the other videos. They were free, you know, and containers can run a few bucks. I'm not gonna lie, they can run a few bucks. I mean, you can always shop inexpensively. I got that really large one for about $2.50 at the thrift store. But if you want 10 of them, you're gonna be looking at 22 bucks. Sometimes $22 is a lot to come by. So I got in touch with the local landfill thanks to my husband, and I got these, and I brought a ton of them home, and now I'm using them, and they are working just fine. Same thing, all of these were free as well. So you can see my husband went ahead and put a little finger mark in the grill because we're getting some major pollen around here right now. That's kind of funny. And that's all I can say. You know, you work with what you have, and then life will give you more. I think especially if you're enjoying it, because this is one of those things I've had to ask myself. If there was anything that I could do that I would do if I wasn't going to get paid for it in any way, and this is something I would do. And the reason is because it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me to grow your own food. It makes sense to me to try to be independent. It makes sense to bring an aspect of fun and creativity into what you're doing, and to literally and figuratively enjoy the fruits of your labor. So I happen to love this, and I sit out here sometimes and I'm with my plants and I'm with the trees and all of this green beauty, and I can hear the birds singing. And see, this to me is what life is about. It's about definitely work. I mean, we have to work, and we have to better ourselves, and we have to figure out who we're not so we can get more in touch with who we are. We have to be able to recognize fiction for what it really is so that we can recognize truth for what it really is. But it's also about enjoying your environment. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a whole lot of that going on. And we got to find it where we can and really appreciate that time, which I do. You know, I used to actually live on the ocean, and I loved it. And I never thought that I would have ever wanted to not live on the ocean. But I was kind of taking a good look at the lifestyle around there, and there was nothing very natural about it. You know, it was a bunch of people crammed into small spaces, and there was no room to move, and there was no room to breathe, and there was no room to just have your own space. And I'm not saying that if that's your lifestyle that there's anything wrong with it. I'm very thankful I got to experience that. I'll always be appreciative of that. But, you know, the interesting thing happens when you change, the physical environment will change. And it's sort of as if you know that that's the case, and get to a point where you almost don't even need it to prove itself to you, that's when it will happen. And I had gotten to a point where I was looking around at my environment, and it was like, as pretty as it is, you know, as much as I enjoyed the sounds of the ocean and I loved the look of it, and I, you know, enjoyed that time for what it was, I changed. My value system has changed. What became important to me had changed. And what became important was having space so that you can grow your own food if you want to, which you can still totally do in a condo. And tons of videos and Pinterest pins about that. So I'm not saying that that's not something that you can do, but I am saying that for me personally, I had changed. And then I have to tell you, it was by no surprise that the physical environment around me was bound to change. And I have to say, right now, this is actually more reflective of how I feel about life right now. Just kind of coexisting here with the trees and with nature, and listening to the birds, and having all my plants around me. And I can guarantee you, if I had more room, and as you can see, I'm kind of filling up the space here. If I had more room, this entire thing would be filled up. That's a goal one day. That's a goal. And I will tell you something else. You know, I was at this healthy potluck the other day, and I'm talking about, how I'd love to be in a position to just grow so much food one day I can give it away or trade it or whatever. And I was thinking today that humanity is kind of governed by this mindset of what's in it for me. This is how we're taught how to market, to ask the customer what's in it for them. Look, I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting to have your needs met. I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with the what's in it for me, but what I do think is terribly wrong is when the what's in it for me is from a place of total lack and imbalance. Because if we're only concerned about what's in it for me, then we'll tell ourselves that we're actually trying to help people, but we're really in it for ourselves. I'm in it to profit. I'm in it so I could pay the bills, but it sounds much better if I say I want to help people. And I'm not saying that people don't really feel that way, but I am saying it's pretty easy to trick your mind into thinking that your ultimate goal is to want to help people, when in reality you're also coming from a place of lack and struggle, which is what this world is built on at this point. I think it's fine to care about what's in it for you, but I also think it's just as important to care about what's in it for everybody else. And if it can be looked at from that perfect, balanced place, if what's good for everybody happens, then what's good for everybody happens, and that includes us. So if I care about everybody thriving instead of just what's in it for me, then what's in it for me will become a natural result of that. Because if everybody around me is in a good space, I have no choice but to be in a good space, unless I'm carrying a bunch of shadow aspects that I refuse to look at. But that's not the case for me. Not much anyway, because I like to look at things. But that's just something I wanted to put out there. If we do things from the aspect of what is good for everybody, if everybody thrives, we thrive. And then we don't have to come from this lack-based perspective where we feel like we need to be filled up because we're running on empty, And that doesn't mean give away what you don't have. Because there's a fine line between thinking that you're doing something great for others if you don't have it to give away. But you have to try to get real with yourself, and you have to really look at things from a clear perspective to understand the balance. What's good for everybody will ultimately end up being good for us, but you can't bankrupt yourself to give away what you don't have, because ultimately nobody wins there either. So that's my take on things, and thought I would share it with you. So that is Dee's Organic Container Gardening, Transplanting Dill, Part 2. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the little pep talk. And until next time, take care.